between doing that and feeding your chickens purchased food.
In a chicken factory, it takes 9 eggs worth of energy to produce 1 egg, which leaves 8 eggs worth of energy to clear up.
So if we're going to keep chickens, we should both satisfy the needs of the chicken and make sure that something in the system uses the outputs of the chicken. So by satisfying its needs, we avoid work. By making sure its outputs are used, we avoid pollution. Pollution is just an unused output of the system.
Millions of tons of food arrive every day, and city people really don't have a clue where it comes from. All we do is pay for it.
In terms of energy costs, food would be about 95% cheaper. I said 95% if it were grown in the city, because just within the city of New York, we lose about 13% of the food in its distribution phase. But 95% of the cost of that food is in carting it to New York, in packaging the food, and in taking the wastes away. Looking around almost every supermarket we enter, it's really hard to believe there's any people hungry in the world or any food crisis. And yet, very little of this food comes from anywhere near the city. And most of it will come from thousands of kilometres away. And a 3-day transport strike, and hardly any of this would be here.
Bill's solution is to grow the food where we live. How realistic is it? In a suburban backyard, one of Mollison's early designs is now reaching maturity. The land covers a 1/4-acre block, and the house is a splendid example of his ideas.
Here's something in the right place. It's the mouldboard plough. It's rather like hanging up some of the burners out of the ovens at Dachau, a relic of the age of agriculture which is just passing. And although there's plenty of food in this garden, there's no need of ploughs.
There are over 500 species, so that even in winter there's enough food for all the family and neighbours.
Kumquats, Fortunella. One of my favourite fruit, I think, especially after a month or two in brandy and sugar. This is a Japanese parsley. Call these throw-over greens. They're all important to health for chickens. A bath full of Chinese water chestnuts, which are delicious. You can buy them in cans, but here you get them fresh, and they're always crisp. Nothing like sitting by an Indian pond and watching a lot of very graceful women in saris picking water chestnuts and putting them into brass bowls. Very sensual. This garden is extremely rich in species, and at every time of year something's in flower. Here we have lavender, and dotted throughout the garden are about a dozen homemade beehives, so that in winter time you can get considerable cheer from honey mead.
But instead of drinking merrily in our gardens, most people prefer to work, mowing lawns. Yet Mollison thinks this green cancer is a serious threat.
The problem with this agriculture is, although it uses up more resources than what most would think of as agriculture, that is food agriculture, it has no use at all. And the rate up cost is somewhere near $4 per square foot to maintain them annually. And that doesn't count for the cost of the fuel and the manpower and the labour of maintaining these strange deflection states in the city that nobody really uses. Well, being a good urban guerrilla, we might start a revolution by putting a hazelnut in the lawn.
People may not use lawns, but they look at them. All the great gardens of history have been neatly designed, carefully sculptured arrangements, compositions that appeal to our order and aesthetics. We believe in symmetry, and we have built palatial landscapes to overcome our disappointment with nature's chaos. We want to live in a world where nature is tidy, hygienic, and safe. But nature's not worried about aesthetics. It's interested in abundance. Ugly mangrove swamps, for example, are the most productive environment on the planet.
We've always been very ambivalent in our approach to mangroves. They're not easily accessible. They're muddy and smell a little bit and they're spiky.
The smell is a sign of its fertility. The decomposing organic matter provides the food for the hundreds of fish and crab species that breed within its waters.
For years we've been filling them in, cutting mangroves down. We've been dredging out these streams and turning them into middle-class residential suburbs. The high tide marks clearly indicated here on the retaining walls by a black line, and that leaves you 1 or 2 feet of sea level rise. Within our projections of the 40-year sea rise, all this capital, all this effort, all these people won't be here because most of this will be sea, shallow seas. It may be a lot more productive, but it's surely going to lay waste a tremendous amount of human effort and resource. Everybody has a tuna boat, but in 2 or 3 years there won't be any more tuna. And that's a law of stupidity or extinction. It's to turn a highly productive natural system into a high-consuming artificial system. The more you walk around places like this, the more surreal they become. Lawns are giving way to astroturf. There's a lot of television sets on in this neighbourhood. I think they might be watching wildlife films. And there are a great many exploration vehicles, 4-wheel drives, that will carry you to the wilderness. So it's as though they're chasing something that's just disappearing in front of them all the time.
Permaculture. Let's wake up and let's get real. Stop complaining and take the wheel. 5 billion people with each one seed. Could we plant all the forest in just 1 week? Plant a garden and recycle your waste.
It'll really grow.
You do it in your own little space. Icon. Permaculture. 4 billion years on this here globe is a lot of evolution, so I've been told. Highly evolved though we may be, we need to get a sense of ecology. Masanoba, Fukuoka, Bill Mollison too, West Jackson and people like me and you. We make a difference in the world, we make a sound profound when we pass the word around. Permaculture. 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 Super client is Gaia, she's the queen, cause we're all a part of her living machine. It's up to us, the permaculture crew, to see this madness through and through. Set an example for the world to see, bring our mother back to harmony.
One of the grave dangers that we're now facing is that we play around with the genetic base of things. For instance, a good example is that to prevent strawberries frosting, I think in California, they've altered the nature of a bacterium, Pseudomonas syringae, so that frost can't settle on the crop, and that's a genetic alteration. The very same bacterium is a very efficient cloud-seeding organism, and we may be depending on that bacterium and its allies for rain. So do we risk stopping rain in the whole world to stop frost settling on a Californian strawberry crop? We should make scientists accountable. At present, they're basically sociopaths.
Bill thinks that before manipulating individual genetic components, we should understand their role in the planetary system. Already we have begun destabilizing global weather patterns, and we know little of how to control it. But our most valuable resources are provided by nature. We think that water is abundant, yet at any one time, only 3% of the water of the planet is fresh, and almost all of it is trapped in ice. The remainder is being continually moved and purified as the sun drives the water cycle. The forests are the major pumps and collectors of this cycle,